Okay, so it's being recorded. So, thank you so much, two of you, for your time joining the alumni panel on careers in language studies. My name is Tomonori Nagano. I'm the director of Japan Studies at LaGuardia, and we are having three alumni from Japanese option, LaGuardia, and they're going to talk about their career path and then current interest plan for the future in their career options now. So why don't we? Before we start, so this session is recorded so that people can watch it later. So and then if you have a questions, you can ask in chat. And also you can ask, just interrupt us anytime, but please be mindful that it's panel discussions, and I think it's not really dialogue between the audience and the panel. So let's give panels to have a chance to talk about their experience. So before we start, we are asking everybody to watch this YouTube video. There is a great resource for so this is I just shared the link in the chat. There's a great resource by Ikigai Connections, which is supported by the US and Japan Bridging Foundations. They're giving a webinar series about the career options available for someone who studied Japan studies or Japanese language. And I asked everybody to watch this specific episode. This is the first episode in the webinar series, and I thought it would be useful. So some of the questions are coming from this video. Yeah. Why don't we just go around and introduce yourself?
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Abdallah Alsallal. My classmates, friends, and students refer to me as Takeshi. Am I doing the full introduction or passing it to the next person? A full introduction, Nagano-sensei?
Oh yeah, you can just you can introduce as much as you want. Yes.
Yeah, sure. I am a graduate from LaGuardia, the liberal arts Japanese option program. And afterwards, I transferred to Queen's College, where I graduated from East Asian Studies, the Japanese program, and with a double major in anthropology. And now I'm doing my master's in applied linguistics at Queen's College. I also teach Japanese and Arabic at LaGuardia, and I teach Japanese at Queen's College. Nice to meet you all.
Okay. Hi. So my name is Edward Agosto. I'm also a former LaGuardia Community College Japanese major, liberal arts Japanese major. After I graduated from LaGuardia, I went to Queen's College as well to major in East Asian Studies with a concentration on Japanese, and then I minored in linguistics. Currently, I am a Japanese tutor here, and yeah, that's pretty much it for now. Yeah.
Oh, when did you guys graduate, if you remember?
For me, it was, I think, spring of 2017, so about 5 years ago.
And Abdallah?
I graduated in 2015 from LaGuardia and 2018 from Queen's College.
So we have another speaker, Nia Borgia. She's joining late in these sessions, and she also graduated in 2017. So I didn't realize that Ed and Nia are the same year. Yeah, she's going to join us later. Okay. So my first question is, so you can spend like a few minutes responding to the question. So I have like a few questions to prompt your conversations. So my first question is, why did you study Japanese studies? So what was your first interest in when you studied LaGuardia?
I think people who are not from the Japanese major are usually baffled by this option, and yeah, they're the most curious about it. But I think our students or classmates, they would relate to us in many ways. The reason why, well, I joined LaGuardia mainly because I wanted just a certificate, to hang on the wall, to have a better resume when I apply for jobs. My career was IT, so it was a completely different career path. But then I realized when I was sitting with my advisor and talking to them that I was not interested in any of the classes that they were suggesting I take. So I asked them, I was like, do you have a Japanese class? And the reason why I asked is because um, many of you, I'm sure, I grew up with Japanese animation, Japanese video games, and just like all that exposure to Japanese pop culture growing up, and I just like absorbed it like a sponge. And I happened to have an interest in languages, and I took a few languages growing up. And to me, I think hearing my first my first anime in Japanese, it really, really caught my attention, and I became interested in it. So I took some Japanese prior to LaGuardia. But then when I came to LaGuardia, I asked my advisor, do you have any Japanese courses? And he said, yes, but that's not good for your program. I was like, it doesn't matter. I want to do a Japanese course. And then after that, I met with Nagano sensei, and, I kind of went on that path. I can elaborate more, but maybe I'll do that in a later question.
Yeah, for me, it was similar to Abdallah. I also initially got interested in Japan through anime. I thought anime was super cool and super fun, and I think more specifically I was into manga because I really like. Some people who know me know I really like to doodle. I like drawing a lot, and I felt like manga art was super unique and super cool, and I thought it would be really awesome if I could go I could make my own manga. So then I looked up how can I go I wasn't sure if foreigners could even make manga in Japan, but even then I was just interested in the possibility of me as a foreigner going to Japan and making a manga. I don't know why. I don't know. I thought it would be cool if I could make manga in Japan. So then I looked up how can foreigners go to Japan, and then I found out that if you get a working visa as a teacher or something, you could teach in Japan. Then you get your working visa, then maybe you can find other possible careers in Japan. For me, again, it was manga and art. So then I, looked up how can you be a teacher in Japan? Then it said that, you could be a teacher if you get a 4-year degree in anything. And then, so yeah, I pursued, I decided to go to LaGuardia, start, studying Japanese so I could learn Japanese, so I could make my manga in Japanese. Cause again, I was stubborn. I was like, I want to make manga. I want to make manga in Japan, and I want to make manga in Japanese. So I started learning the Japanese language, and then as I started studying it, I felt I grew really passionate about it because through anime, through manga, through you start learning the language, and then through the language you start learning the culture, and through the culture you get really I don't know more and more interest begin to develop. And for me it was just it kind of spiraled. So it was just I was just some guy who liked anime and manga, who started learning Japanese for fun because I thought it'd be cool to go to Japan. And then I fell in love with the language and the culture, and that's kind of yeah.
So both of you, sort of entry point was pop culture, or probably it's very typical for someone who studies Japanese language, anime, manga, and games. I'm curious, how those kind of initial interests influenced your career options that you considered? Is it guiding you to the certain track, or is it the other way around? I think Ed somewhat mentioned you started interested in teaching, but that's not actually how you started these options. Which way is more stronger, your interest or whatever options available to you?
For me, I think initially, it again for me I wanted to do art, and being a teacher was kind of a side thought. It wasn't the main thing for me. However, after studying the language, and I guess my expectations became more realistic, or I just kind of I just changed as a person. Because as I've changed, I don't know. I grew interest in teaching. It was just something that was more of an afterthought. Oh yeah, I'll be a teacher for now and then until I can get connections or until I get better Japanese and I get better at art, then I can throw that aside, right? But for me, like as I've grown and as I've continued learning the language and I've continued studying at school, I decided like I really like teaching, which is something that I kind of learned as a Japanese major student at LaGuardia, where like I'm not sure if Abdallah mentioned it earlier, but he was before he became a teacher, he was a tutor in the same position I'm currently in at LaGuardia. And there'd be times where like maybe the tutoring lab become very like overwhelmed with students, and like sometimes I would just volunteer and help a little bit, and then he would obviously check to make sure that I did everything right. But I would just volunteer and help people, and people would say, "Oh, thank you so much," and it'd make me really happy. And I realized that like teaching and like or just tutoring or whatever it is really fun, and I really want to be someone involved with like I don't know languages and exchanging languages and tutoring and teaching. I thought for me, yeah. So like for me, I've changed. I think as I studied and as I, became involved in the Japanese major, like my career expectations became more focused on teaching opposed to what they initially were. And sorry if I kind of rambled a little bit too much, but yeah.
Dala?
All right. Just a quick comment about Edo. Edo, he started as my student back when I was a tutor, like he mentioned, and due to circumstances and because he showed initiative and he showed a good command of the language for someone at his level, he kind of became my unofficial assistant at the time because of how hectic it used to get at the language lab, and he's been helping me for many years now, and now he's officially with us in the program, so it's great to have him here. But going back to me, I would say Japanese is what shaped my career trajectory to a certain degree. Because, like I said, my intention was to join to get a certificate just to be, I guess, a well-regarded IT professional at the time. But then after taking more Japanese classes and then meeting with Nagano sensei, we met one-on-one, and I asked him if I were to take Japanese more seriously, what are the job prospects for me? And we went over many things, but I think the one thing that caught my attention was either working for a Japanese corporation in America or going into academia. And at the time, I didn't give it much thought, but like I come from a background, like my parents, well, my mom, she works in academia herself. So I grew up kind of like helping her print out her tests on the computer, and maybe I would give her like a second opinion about her academic stuff. So I was somewhat involved with this kind of a path since I was younger. So I did have some interest in it, but it wasn't what I was initially pursuing. But then I signed up for the Japanese, or I joined the Japanese program after speaking with Nagano sensei. And one day my tutor came to me and he told me, we're looking for someone who can tutor Arabic at the time. But from that point, there was a need for Japanese tutors, and I definitely immediately showed my interest in that, and I became a tutor. And I just found myself like academia became it just felt right, and it was in part shaped by my interest in Japanese in Japan. Yeah.
So it sounds like it's not like one way or the other. It sounds like they are like interacting with each other. Like you
Yes.
find something and that also interests your interest, but your interests actually open up something new.
Absolutely.
So I want to go into the webinar recording that we asked to watch, and in the webinar, Cassia Lynch, so she's the recruiters, not recruiters, but the career advisor who presented the webinar. She talked about 4 different things that the Japanese study students should do. And I just shared in the chat, she encouraged to experiment. Like you said, just try the different things to explore different things so that to test your interests. And she also recommended connect with people. So connect as many people as possible that might be useful for your future careers. She also encouraged to take a JLPT, use the Nihongo, utilize the Nihongo. And then finally, she encouraged to develop the different careers, different skill sets besides Japanese language, so that you can sell the skill sets along with your knowledge in Japan studies and Japanese language. So these are like 4 different recommendations that she presented. Does any of this resonate well to you so far in your career?
Absolutely. I actually, after as I was watching the video, I was taking notes and reflecting on some of my personal experience compared to what was mentioned. So in terms of flexibility, like I mentioned, I went from IT to Japanese, and that was unexpected for me at the time. And I found a great career path where I wasn't anticipating one. As for I think it's very important to also, so in addition to being open-minded and flexible, it's important to take initiative. I was very diligent, or I would like to think so, as a Japanese student, and through my interactions with my professors, I'm sure that they remembered me afterwards. And then when I approached, Professor Nagano, when I approached different people about a possibility of working as an instructor, I'm sure that they recalled the experiences we had in the classroom, and I would imagine that helped me as well. Also, I think networking, that was a thing that was mentioned in the video, and like, for example, Professor Toyama, who also teaches Japanese at LaGuardia, from time to time, she has guest speakers who come in, and I attended those lectures by the guest speakers, and I networked with them afterwards. And we're kind of still in touch. Unfortunately, with COVID, things slowed down, but I do intend to. And for example, Professor Ogura, who works at Rikyo University, is one of the speakers, and I intend to continue staying in touch with him. And after I finish my master's degree, I can reach out to him and see if I can, for example, visit Rikyo University. And like, sometimes you start things on a social level. Sometimes it's just a mutual interest in someone's career or their research, their studies, and you never know where these things might take you. So I think it's important to network. And we have opportunities like that here at LaGuardia.
To follow up, I think I felt like a lot of things kind of resonated with me when I was watching the video. Like when she, during her 4 recommendations, again, like Nagano Sensei mentioned, like for experiment, she mentioned like there's no need to rush. Like you don't have to like you're 18 or 19. You don't have to be like, oh, I need to figure out my career right now, and I need to do this, and I'm gonna stick with this. Like, because things change, right? Like I mentioned earlier, like again, for me, I want to be like a manga artist, and then I went from that to like I want to teach and say in the academic field. Like there's no need to rush. You can kind of figure things out, like slow down, take a breather, talk to people, like talk to family, talk to friends, or just talk to yourself and figure it out. Like you don't have to know everything right now at this moment. It's okay. Cause what is it? Like I'm not doing what I'm clearly not doing what I thought I was going to do, like when I was my age, like 10 years ago. Right. Like, I'm kind of figuring things out as I go along, and that's okay. I think the other thing is volunteering and networking. She mentioned that a lot, like volunteer, try to figure, maybe through volunteering, you can kind of figure things out. Maybe you go from here to here, and that's okay. You just take what is it? Like the first step of like many steps, and maybe like, let me see if I can show you guys real quick. But something I like, she showed an image. It's kind of hard to see, but, of this like kid, right? It's like blurred out. You can't see it, but like, it was like the staircase, right? And like the kids like taking their first step of like many steps. And sometimes you might, as you're going up that staircase, maybe you go backwards, maybe you go like left or right, and that's okay. Like the point is like eventually you'll get to wherever you want to get. I thought that was really interesting. The other thing is like apply to a lot of places. Whenever you do figure out what you want to do, whenever you get to that career phase, like apply to many places. Don't just like apply to one job and wait for opportunities to come to you. Like you have to like be proactive and like apply. The other thing that she mentioned was practice Nihongo. For me, like practice your Japanese is important if you want to have a career in Japan. Like for me, like, I do want to live in Japan. I want to experience like life in Japan, and I think it is important to have like a bit of fluency. You don't have to know Japanese. You can learn as you get there, right? Maybe you just like maybe you're like a 101, 102 student. You take a semester and you study abroad or something. That's fine. You can do that. But like, um, I wanna. I think it is important if because I want a career in Japan. I think it's important for me to like gain a proficiency. So like I'm taking the JLPT exam this year actually. I've been studying for 7 years and I'm not like fluent or anything, but like I'm just taking it to see where I am. Like because I think even if I pass or fail, you get a gauge of your level, which is important to me. Um, and the last thing she mentioned was like develop your skill sets, right? So study something in addition to Japanese. For me, it was like linguistics, and I really grew a passion for it. Like I had a random semester, I think, in LaGuardia where I took linguistics 101, and I thought it was super interesting. And again, like I realized that I like teaching, and I feel like if you are interested in the academic field or language in general, like having a background in linguistics is very helpful. So like definitely study something in addition to Japanese. Like it's great that you're a Japanese major. You can definitely do things with it. But like I think Abdallah Sensei mentioned, he studied what was it? Humanity. What was it again? What was your agriculture? Right? Not agriculture. I forgot. I'm sorry.
Anthropology.
Anthropology. There you go. So yes, study something in addition to Japanese. I think that's important too. Like Japanese is awesome, but like having another, I guess, like thing where you specialize in is also really important if you, yeah.
So if you pick one most important thing among like those four, like I think I kept hearing more about like experimenting a lot more than the others. And you also mentioned connecting others too. But it's interesting you didn't only Ed talks about like JLPT or Japanese language skills. So is it right to think like experimenting is the most important things that the current students try, or is that the correct understanding?
So I actually, yeah, I gave that question some thought actually when I was listening to the lecture, and I think I think it depends on what you want to do. So if you want to work in Japan, you know, for a Japanese corporation, for example, chances are you want to go for JLPT and probably pass N2, for example. That's the second highest level. But if you want to work at a Japanese corporation in America, then it depends how much Japanese are you expected to know. It depends also on the position. One thing I will say is that the 4 levels of Japanese at LaGuardia, followed by however many, usually 2 more or 3 more, depending at a senior college that you might do, I think that will put you on the right track for in order to reach Japanese fluency. But there's also a lot that depends on you. It depends on whether you're able to set aside the time and continue studying. There's a lot of personal motivation involved, and setting and making it into a habit studying on your own time. But only you can make that decision, and it really depends on which career path you go into, I would say.
Yeah, I agree with Abdullah. So I can kind of put aside Nihongo because I think like just like Abdullah said, like Nihongo is important depending on I guess of what career path you specifically go into. But I think experimenting is very important. I think connecting is very important, even if it's just like with Nagana Sensei or Abdullah Sensei, right? Like just staying connected with your professors, and you never know when maybe like in a few years when you apply for a job, maybe you need someone to write your letter of recommendation, right, for your maybe you can ask one of your former professors and stay connected with them so they have a relationship with you, so it's easier for them to write a really good letter for you, or just meeting recruiters and getting to know them and the positions that are available in the field you're interested in. So whenever there are whenever there are I guess jobs available in that career you're interested in, maybe it'll be easier for you if you have connections with those recruiters, and also just developing your skills because I think Japanese is a wonderful major. I think it's something it's like I don't know how to explain it. Let's say you have a president and Japanese is the major or whatever in that box, right? You need a ribbon or something nice to top it off with. You need I'm trying to think of a Christmas present or something, and you need something nice to kind of put a cherry on the top or whatever. You have a great cake and you need a cherry on top to make it perfect. I think whatever your minor is or your other major is, it would kind of make your Japanese major even stronger and like look better whenever you are applying for your job, no matter what it is. So I kind of put aside like the study Nihongo. I think it's important depending on what specifically you're going into, but it's not the most important thing compared to the other three tips she gave. Yeah, that's what I say.
So you pick most likely experiment connects
Experiment. So the three tips, the four tips are experiment
and then
connecting.
develop skills too.
Yeah. Those are three. Those to me, all three are equally important. Nihongo is important too, but it's something I would put on the side for now, depending on what you specifically want to do. Do you want to work in Japan? Do you want to work in a very you want to work in America with a job that uses a lot of Nihongo, like Japanese? If not, then maybe you don't need to really focus on that right now.
Right.
But it's important. It's good to learn. Yeah.
Right. So yeah. Let me move on. Abdallah has to leave soon, right? Am I correct, or you can stay?
Like 10, 12 more minutes.
10, 12 more minutes, right? Okay. So yeah. So I'm gonna go back to the video again. So in the same videos, she presented the recommendations, and after that, she also presented the 4 typical career path for Japan studies students, and she mentioned the business. And I think it sounded like she herself worked at the Japanese old company in some capacity. So there are lots of Japanese corporates in the US that hire someone who understand the US-Japan relationships and with a little bit of Japanese knowledge. And also she talked about translation and interpretations. And my understanding it's mostly done by freelancing. That's my interpretations. And she also talked about the teaching language, teaching English in Japan. I think it means probably JET. And the last one is art and culture, which includes working like NGO or some lucky people ends up working in the anime industry. So if you hear like those 4 paths, and then I know that you know a lot of people who did the Japan studies at Queen's and from LaGuardia as well as at Queen's. Do you feel like these are good representations of the careers that people choose, or not really?
I would say so. Yeah, I think it's a good representation. I have a friend who works for a Japanese company here in New York. I have several friends who worked at JET. I know someone who more in the arts side of things. They work as a DJ, and they networked through other Japanese DJs on Twitter, and they got good job opportunities through Twitter. But mainly, yes, what you mentioned through the video, I think, is an accurate representation of the job market. Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Ed?
I agree as well. I think for me, like because my main interest is like teaching and education, like that was like what I focus on the most. But yeah, like there are other opportunities that you can do with a Japanese major, relation to art and business, etc. I thought it was interesting too that she mentioned like what is it like other like along with education, I think she mentioned that there were like scholarships you could do, and also like Eikawa. So like other than JET, like the traditional like assistant language teaching opportunities you have in Japan, Eikawa is kind of like more in one, like one-on-one, kind of like tutoring in a way. You kind of like you get people to come in and you kind of like one-on-one teaching, which is also other opportunities you can do with physical education.
I'm curious, like how did you learn about these like opportunities, like typical places people end up with? Like did you research yourself while you're school or after graduate, or you just like hear from the people who you knew?
For me, it was. You can go on.
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. So yeah, for me, it was. I think I mentioned earlier because I wanted to like find a career in Japan, and like how can I do that as like a non-Japanese person? How can I get to Japan to do what I want to do? Which again, initially was to draw manga in Japan. I needed like the best way for like a non-Japanese person or like a foreigner to get into Japan was like through teaching. So like how can I be a teacher? Again, it was like get a 4-year degree in almost anything. And then as I kind of started the major and again, my interest kind of changed from like, being wanting to be a manga artist to actually wanting to be a teacher in Japan. I met a lot of people and I heard from other people like about other opportunities that you can work in, other types of, I guess, like jobs you can do like in relation to Japan, which again, like e-commerce business, et cetera, et cetera. So kind of like initially with research, my own research, and then I guess through, what is it? Like I heard secondhand from other people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, word of mouth is definitely one big one for sure. I think there's a couple of places that come to mind when I think of what I did to learn about potential career opportunities in Japan. One of them is, in addition to just talking with classmates and friends, one of them is Tofugu. I think it's a great website, and it has a lot of information about various topics related to Japan and Japanese language. Another one is actually Reddit. There's a lot of people that go on Reddit, like-minded people, and they discuss either their experience or they discuss their application processes to whatever jobs that may apply to. There's also a number. I can't think of one right now off the top of my head, but there's a number of YouTubers who they start like entire YouTube channels based around these things, around their experience in Japan, how they got there. What they did and what you could do in order to pursue a similar career. So there is a wealth of resources on the internet, I would say. But a lot of, especially when it comes to YouTube and Reddit, what someone might experience could be different from yours. But it's still good to learn from other people's experiences so far. I do have one comment I want to make because I do have to go very soon. If that's okay, it's a little bit unrelated, but still on the topic. So one thing that happened to me, some of you might be able to relate to this or not, but I'll tell you my experience. When I was younger, I was inexperienced, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that resulted in me having a bit of a romanticized view of what Japan might be, and it's a romanticized view that I formed myself with my own very limited experience at the time. And I think it's very important that I encourage people to learn about Japan and to even pursue jobs or even their dreams in Japan. That is 100% legitimate, but it's also important to be rooted in reality with our expectations. So I think it's important to try to understand Japan is just like every country. It has, its challenges, and we need to understand those challenges, such as, okay, you need to decide, am I going to work in a Japanese corporation here, or am I going to work in Japan, for example? If I'm going to work in Japan, do I understand what that entails? So, for example, Japanese corporate culture versus American corporate culture. What are the expectations of an employee working in Japan? And I think it's very important to do research, to learn about other people's experiences, and to understand that for me personally, it was important for me to understand that, reality versus anime Japan as were two, very different things. Although, anime can be a reflection of real Japan in many ways, but I think it's important to keep that in mind. Yeah.
I want to add on that. I also think it's really important to actually go to Japan. Like, you just, it's okay. I don't know how to explain it, but like, maybe, study abroad, take a semester to study abroad there, or maybe just visit on vacation, take a month or two before you make a commitment to like work in Japan for a year. Because like, again, you can get to Japan and like think like anime and whatever your interest is, like you might get there and you might feel differently when you get there. Again, like the work hours are probably not what you expect them to be. Like Abdallah said, like definitely do research on, the work environment and how that's different from the American work environment. Also, but I also think it's just important to get there because you might the culture might be different from what you're expecting it to be. Like, it's not just going to be whatever your romanticized image is. If you have one, it might be very different from that when you actually get there. So spending like a few weeks as a tourist or as a student might give you a better perspective of like whether or not, maybe it might give you a better idea as to whether or not you actually want to spend time living there, right? Before you make that commitment to live there for a year or two, like, and work there for a year or two, just go there as like, just, I think it's important to experience being there in Japan. Yeah.
So what I'm just curious, like what was the first experience going to Japan? Like how did it happen? Did you just took your private trip, or did you join a study abroad or something?
For me, it was.
For me, it was. Oh, yeah.
You can go first. You have to go first. You can go first. You go first. It's okay.
All right. Yeah, I've been to Japan several visits, mostly as a tourist. Unfortunately, at the time, due to personal circumstances, I was not able to apply to study abroad. But that is a big regret of mine. And I know at four-year colleges, they have direct agreements with Japanese universities. We also have a study abroad office at LaGuardia that coordinates through four-year colleges as well. And now that Japan is opening up post-COVID, I highly recommend taking a semester abroad in Japan, because even when you go to Japan as a tourist, yes, you get a much better image compared to some expectations that you may have, but going there as a tourist and living there are still two different stories, right? Anyway, thank you all. Sorry to leave early. Best of luck.
Take care.
So what was the experience, Ed?
For me, it was literally exactly the same thing as Abdallah, where I've only got to go to Japan. I've been to Japan 5 times already, and like I'm gonna go again actually this winter for the 6th time. I love Japan. It's like a wonderful place, but like for me again, I've only gone to go out as a tourist. One of my biggest regrets, just like Abdullah, is I never took the opportunity. Even though Nagana Sensei told me a million times, there's a scholarship opportunity. There's like this program where you can go to Japan for 2 weeks and learn at Nagano, or like there's like a maybe like a Queen's College, you can like take advantage of like those 4-year agreements where you can like take a semester or two and live in Japan and get accredited in the foreign in Japan, and all those credits will go back to your main institution in America. I just never took advantage of it. Mainly, honestly, for me, was probably like financial reasons, and also like why I didn't do scholarships, I don't really know. It's one of my regrets. But again, if you have those opportunities available to you, if Nagano Sensei is telling you do it, you should do it, because it would be a great opportunity. I agree with Abdullah, just like I said earlier, where like spending time actually being in Japan is important before you actually live there. Obviously, you can stay longer as a student. As a tourist, you typically limit to like a 90-day visa, but even then, it's like impossible to stay that long, because like you have to have like a lot of savings. Compared to just being a student where you get to stay there for at least 3 to 6 months or even a year, and you spend way more time. You have more weekends, more time to actually do things, travel to more places. You can go as a tourist; it's totally fine, but like you're more limited, I feel like, as a tourist, because everything is coming out of your pocket compared to getting a scholarship or working there, where you have more. You get paid to be there, or like you get yeah.
I see. Yeah, we just did the study abroad workshops, and these study abroad scholarships actually have a preference on community college students. So that's one of the few things like you could take advantage of. So yeah, if anyone current students are interested, is we have a recording of the workshop, and the deadline is sometime in I want to say January. I might be wrong, but so we still have some time. So we have a few more questions, and then I think it was already mentioned. So in the webinar, she emphasized so much on LinkedIn. What did you feel about? So she also mentioned about Twitters for freelance jobs. So she basically talked about only two social networking for your careers. One is LinkedIn, and the other one is a Twitter. I mean, let's start with: do you have a LinkedIn account?
I do, but it's not active. And in regards to Twitter, like I have it, but only for personal usage. Like, but I think it is important to have like some, because like I think everyone knows that you have to be careful what you say on social media, because you never know. When you share the internet, it could always come back in the future, and it could be either haunt you or maybe be a positive like reflection of you. But again, the positive reflections is what you want. So you should have like a social media presence, because if you like when you apply for a company, your employer might look you up, look your name up, and see, oh, this person has a Facebook, and see what they've written in the past, and does this person have like this kind of I don't know, this personality or social media presence that it will make our company look good, you know? Companies do care about that. I do think it's important to have both like a LinkedIn and a Twitter where that you keep it for, specifically for business usage, and you try to like kind of build your, again, network, right? You network through both of those platforms. Like again, the something you also mentioned a lot was networking. So just using those two platforms to network and gain connections now while you're still a student, I think that's important. It's something again I should do, but I just kind of have them collecting dust. So maybe I'm not the best person to speak upon them, but like I do think I do think they're very important. Maybe if I did, like I could have gained, it would make me look better, right? I think as a applicant to all these companies that I'm applying for now, I think having that background would have been beneficial to me. Yeah.
So I'm curious, like why aren't you interested in like developing your LinkedIn like profile? Do you think that's not like really what you want to do to expand your opportunities, or?
I do think it's really good, but I'm just personally not good at. I've never been good with social media presence. I've always been a very like quiet person, typically to myself. So like to do that, like it's like I don't know how to explain it. I guess because I'm introverted, like it's really hard for me to like exert that energy and to do that, even though I know it'd be beneficial for myself, and I know other people have probably experienced like introvertness or anxiety or whatever. Like you should do it. You should try, right? I think it's important to take that first step and try. But for me, I've always just been terrible at it, and maybe like as I begin, now that I'm a tutor here, maybe I will take those steps and start trying to make that taking those steps to build up that like social media presence. I do think it's very helpful. It's just for me, I've never been good at that kind of stuff, but I do think it's important.
What about like more receptive types of social media that Abdallah mentioned? Like he mentioned YouTube, Reddit, and Tofugu. Do you think these are useful to consider your careers?
I think they're very useful. Like YouTube again, like you get even if you can't, let's say you can't go to Japan, maybe you can't get a scholarship, maybe you can't like study abroad, or you don't have the time to like you don't have the chance to take a tourist trip or whatever. Like again, maybe you can experience through other people, like living in Japan, life in Japan, teaching in Japan, doing all these things abroad. Like you can probably experience you can gain all these experiences from the comfort of your own home, right? For free. So definitely taking advantage of like YouTube and like watching people and yeah, just like watching all these people who are living life in Japan and how it affects them. Maybe it would give you a better idea of life in Japan. I also think what was the other one he mentioned?
Reddit.
Reddit and Tofuga. Yeah. So Reddit, like you get like more like-minded people. Like Reddit's a really good source when you have like questions about I use Reddit a lot. Definitely to like because I'm applying for the JET program currently, right? And a lot of times where I feel stuck and I'm not sure what to do, I just look up like Reddit posts and like read forums of people who got stuck on the same thing I did, or some people who are maybe had maybe the same error that I did, or maybe they seek similar problem solving for something that I'm currently having trouble with with my application. So definitely Reddit's a really good source, and Tofugu is amazing because Tofugu like it's specific towards people who are not in Japan but want to be in Japan, or people who are currently in Japan. It's like what is it? It's for foreigners who want to know more about Japan, and maybe Tofuga has a lot of like I think Tofuga has like a job search section too, right?
Yeah.
Where you can look for jobs in Japan, or careers related to Japan abroad, or just like I know Tofuga has like an article just based around like making your JET application or making your JET statement of purpose, which is the letter you need for like it's kind of like your cover letter as to why you want to work in Japan and why you want to teach. So Tofuga is a really great source. There's another one. I think it's what was it? Like guy. It's like I don't remember. It's a Japanese site, but for foreigners. It's like Gaijin. I don't remember what it's called. I'm sorry. I can look it up in a second, but you can go on Nagano-sensei. I'll see if I can find the site that I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Have you watched the Shinpai Desho? No.
Shinpai Desho.
Yeah. That's another famous. I think Kaisha mentioned at one point in a webinar. But it sounds like many people get the information from YouTube and Reddit and Tofugu. That sounds like more effective ways to collect the information about the carriers.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Shinpai Desho.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can share. And then also, of course, the host of webinar has the website. It's called Ikigai Connect.
Yeah.
I just shared the links and Shinpai Desho too. So Shinpai Desho means like you're right. You have a right to be worried. So it's like it's a little bit ironic website.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's good to know. Yeah. So we have a few more minutes, and if you have any like advice, like a general advice to students who just started or who are going to finish at LaGuardia, in terms of transfer, in terms of careers, what kind of advice do you give?
Definitely, again, like I said earlier, I think it's important to have like that other skill set other than Japanese. So like Japanese is a great foundation, but I think it's always good to have something on the top of it to kind of make it all come together, make it look better for when you're applying whenever you apply to your future job, whatever it is. Just having like whether it be linguistics or like with Abdallah it was anthropology, um, or maybe just history, right? Because maybe like, or maybe education, right? Like, because then maybe you can teach Japanese language, right? Or maybe you can teach Japanese history specifically, right? It's always good to have like an extra like cherry on top of that like Japanese major. The other thing is like something the video mentioned, the webinar mentioned was like apply to a lot of places, right? Like definitely don't just apply to one place and just kind of sit around and wait for it because like maybe like that place doesn't work out, but maybe the other what is it like career opportunities that are related within that field that you can apply for as well, but you're not aware of them because you're focused on like this big program, right? JET is like the big program for a lot of people who want to work and teach in Japan. But there are a lot of companies that are very similar to JET. Are they as like prestigious? Are they as great as JET? Maybe not, but even then you can still get there, right? Maybe you can gain that experience, and maybe you can use that experience you gain teaching in Japan with the non-JET program. And then you can, when you apply to JET, if you apply to JET again in the future, maybe with that experience, you can probably get accepted to JET, right? So apply to a lot of places, be proactive. Don't just wait around and wait for something to come to you. Maybe something could come, but it's very unlikely. You need to be proactive. The other thing is like things like ikigai, right? The ikigai, what is it? Your purpose, your main interest, those things change as well. And that's okay. Like for me, again, it was initially art, and anime. Like I loved anime and art, right? And then eventually like I grew like a love and appreciation for just like traditional Japanese culture and the way of life compared to how it's very different from like American culture. Like I used to love, again, pop culture. I still like pop culture. Like I still love Japanese music, right? But it's not my main passion. For me, it went from like, again, like anime to just like the language itself to the culture to like teaching, et cetera, et cetera. Ikigai changes as you change because we as humans, as we grow up, we are, our circumstances change, everything changes and that's okay. Accept it, move along. What's the other thing that I thought was really notable? And yeah, definitely, if you can, when you apply to your senior colleges or even now as a student, like Nagano Sensei just mentioned there was a scholarship seminar like last week. Watch the video if you didn't get to attend it, or like talk to Nagano Sensei after this, like email him, ask him like, hey, I'm interested in learning more about scholarship opportunities, and take a semester, take a few weeks to like stay in Japan, study in Japan, and maybe like once you're there, maybe you meet other professors who you can then connect with, right? Who can probably give you advice for career opportunities you can do once you get your 4-year degree or maybe your 2-year degree at LaGuardia, right? So definitely just take advantage of any opportunity that comes to you. I'm kind of throwing a lot out there. I'm just kind of like, but yeah, I think so. Yeah, just apply. Like your ikigai change, that's totally fine. You can change, you change, and that's accept it. Be happy. Like Japanese is an awesome major. It's a wonderful like program that we have here at LaGuardia. A lot of other 4-year schools, will let you continue studying. Take advantage, just continue studying, continue having fun. Take advantage of any opportunity you have, whether that be to study abroad or to take a trip in Japan. That'd be great. And connect. Yeah, connect. And I think being here is also like the first step in connecting, right? Yeah.
So yeah, is there any questions? If you have any, you can ask or ask in chat. Asking once. asking twice, asking 3 times. Okay, so yeah, so thank you so much for everybody for your time. I think we had a very productive conversations about the careers, and I definitely share the link to the recording, and also we have a lot of resources that introduced now too. So I'm gonna share the links to those resources as well. Okay, so thank you so much, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.